Judas discourages the atmosphere of giving. Judas is sitting there, and the first thing he blurts out is, why would you do that? He's discouraging the atmosphere of giving. Why in the world would you give that amount? This is a voice of confusion that suggests you are giving to the wrong cause. Judas is literally saying, you're putting your emphasis on Jesus? That's not important. What should be important is our mission to fulfill the needs for the poor. We're going to talk today. Because what we see is that Judas doesn't have a desire to genuinely serve God. He actually has been stealing from the plot the whole time. Judas has been stealing from the offering plate. Jesus is a traveling minister. And so as they've collected finances, Judas along the way has been stealing the whole time. So Judas himself isn't really concerned about the poor. But have you ever heard people say things like this? Man, you got a nice car. You got a nice house. You probably should sell that and give it to the poor. I want you to hear this. I want you to see this. Why is that the perspective not knowing what others are already doing? In other words, you don't know what I'm doing to serve God in other capacities. But you may assume because I drive a certain car or live in a certain area that I'm not giving to God. Or I'm only looking out for myself. I want us to change our perspective today. Change our mindset. Because maybe God is blessing me in a way because of my giving. Listen. I want to keep going. Number 3, as it relates to this generosity versus selfishness, I want you to see this. It should not have been used. This is Judas' perspective. This is something that should not have been used to pour on his feet. That's something that could have been sold and used for the poor. As long as we can see, listen carefully, someone else isn't doing what they should be doing, and we don't even know what they are doing, then we don't have to look inside and see if we are generous or selfish. Judas judges, again, while stealing from God for selfish gain. I think this is interesting because one of the things as I was looking at the text, I was reminded of John chapter 6, verse 70. And so since Jesus is in charge of the disciples, he leads the disciples, I thought it was interesting that in John chapter 6, verse 70, Jesus declares, have I not chosen 12 of you and one of you are the devil? This, scholars believe, is approximately 1.5 to 2 years before Jesus meets Lazarus and Martha and Mary at the home. So that indicates to me that the whole time Jesus has been in ministry, Jesus knew who Judas was. And in knowing who Judas was, I know I picked my 12, and I know that one of you are the devil, but I'm still going to allow you to be in charge of the money. I need you to walk with me. Because Jesus, as James talks about, God isn't about tempting you. He's about testing you. And so Judas was given plenty of opportunities in the circle of trust, in the circle of truth, in the circle of influence to change his behavior. But Judas chooses to have this mindset where it's all about me and I'll steal. Jesus allows him to be tested. Since I know this is the area you struggle in, I'm going to place you in areas where now you have to depend on me to get out. Judas chooses the flesh. Can I keep going? Dealing with God, God will give us a test. I want you to know that Malachi 3:8 declares, will a man rob God? The question is, yet you have robbed me, but you say, in what way have we robbed you, Lord? In tithes and offering. Judas is literally robbing Jesus. And many of us will sit here in a pompous, arrogant way without realizing it and say, I don't ever rob God. Now, if y'all from Basket was coming around BJ, I do not believe that there's one in here that would walk by and stuff their hand into the plate and take it. That's obvious. But if there is a tenth that belongs to God and I choose to leave it in my account, is that not the same? God is calling us as his people to give. And one of the things that we oftentimes struggle with is this perspective that, I give a percentage to the National Negro Fund. That's part of my 10%. Can I talk? I give a percentage of my 10th to a charity fund, St. Jude. I give a portion of my 10th to my school and to make sure my children are okay. I want to encourage you to know that there are 3 types of giving that scripture talks about. 1 is your tithe that should never be touched. 2 is an offering. The 3rd is above and beyond. The Bible is encouraging us, this story, this scripture is encouraging us that what belongs to God should go to God. The most dangerous thing we can do is convince ourselves that I'm giving out of my 10th to other organizations versus the 10th going to the house of God. Can I teach this morning? The 10th, what I gross, a 10th of what I gross in a year belongs to God. That goes to the house. Everything else is an offering or above and beyond. And the problem is that many of us as believers have not even mastered the art of tithing yet. So we don't even get to offering or learning how to be generous to give above and beyond. I want you to see something. The first point, as I mentioned, the enemy of generosity is selfishness. Next, there is an extravagance of generosity. I'm going to give you a few scriptural points. The extravagance of generosity. 1, we see David gives to the temple. The equivalent for today would have been $21 billion. David gives to the temple. But one other idea or one other picture of scripture that we see that most people don't see as an extravagant giving is the woman who gave the 2 mites. The woman who gave her last. Because it isn't about the amount. It's equal sacrifice. It isn't about the amount that God says that's what's extravagant and I smile on it. He's looking at the heart. Judas had a heart to say, we shouldn't even be focused on Jesus. I need you to see this. We shouldn't be focused on the Messiah. Why is she so excited? Why is she so thrilled about giving this perfume and then placing it in her hair only to rub it on his dirty, crusty feet? Why would that be important? I want you to see how imperative this is, because Judas has a perspective here in this moment. He has a perspective that says, I don't care about the kingdom. I don't care about what's happening with God. I want more opportunity to be able to steal for myself. I want more opportunity to be able to build in selfish gain. And we as believers have to be careful about how much we're looking to build our own empire. Can I talk? I do not need another pair of sneakers. Auntie said, I know that's right. I don't need another pair of sneakers. And I want to be honest with the church. I had to take inventory of my life over this last year with the campaign that our church is doing. And I said, God, I've been selfish. It's not like my feet are growing and I need more sneakers. Don't judge me. I'm sharing my truth right now. It's just the way they sparkle in the plastic. Something